Charles Oliveira fires back at Max Holloway. The rivalry between Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira and Max "Blessed" Holloway has been quietly simmering for nearly a decade, but now it looks like the fire is finally starting to burn again. What started as an unfortunate injury stoppage back in 2015 is now turning into a potential grudge match that could capture the attention of MMA fans worldwide. Their first meeting came at UFC Fight Night 74 in Saskatoon, Canada, when Holloway and Oliveira were both climbing the ranks. Fans were expecting an action-packed battle between two young, hungry contenders, but just 139 into the first round, the fight came to an abrupt and confusing end. Oliveira clutched his neck and shoulder after a grappling exchange, later claiming he had suffered an esophageal injury. Holloway was declared the winner via first-round TKO, but the anticlimactic finish left more questions than answers. For years, the incident faded into the background as both men went on to have championship-caliber careers. Oliveira rose to become UFC lightweight champion, while Holloway cemented himself as one of the greatest featherweights of all time and recently claimed the UFC's BMF belt. But the controversy never truly died, and recently, Holloway decided to stir the pot. In a recent interview, Holloway openly questioned the legitimacy of Oliveira's injury. "There's also Oliveira," Holloway said. "I heard he was yapping and saying he had an injury when we fought. Last time I checked, when they did a follow-up and wanted to find out what the injury was, there was no injury report on it. They said he was fine, so I have no idea what the hell he's talking about." That's not just a casual comment, it's a direct challenge to Oliveira's credibility. And Do Bronx wasn't about to let it go unanswered. Speaking to Thunderpick, Oliveira responded with calm but pointed confidence. "Man, I think everyone wants to see that fight. It's definitely going to happen at some point. Whatever people say doesn't really matter to me. Everybody knows I was injured. I spent 2 days in the hospital. Why would I do that for nothing? That's just part of the game. He's a great fighter, he's the BMF champ, so why not make it happen later on? For now, let's stay focused on this fight and then we'll see." Oliveira's reply didn't come with the same heat as Holloway's accusation, but make no mistake, the Brazilian isn't brushing this off. Instead, he's planting a seed for a potential future showdown. Fans are already buzzing about the idea of a rematch nearly 10 years in the making, this time without the controversy and with both fighters at the peak of their skills. For now, Oliveira's focus remains on the immediate task ahead: Rafael Fiziev at UFC Rio on October 11th. A win there could propel Do Bronx back toward title contention, and potentially line him up for a blockbuster grudge match with Holloway down the road. The first fight ended in confusion. The second, it could be an all-time classic. Now move on to the second story. Dan Hooker goes off on Charles Oliveira. The war of words between Dan the Hangman Hooker and Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira has officially hit boiling point. What started as a casual comment from Oliveira about top lightweights avoiding him has now turned into a verbal slugfest, and neither man is pulling any punches. Earlier this week, Oliveira sat down with AG Fight and made a bold claim: no top lightweight would willingly fight him in Brazil. In his words, the list of willing challengers was empty, even when the UFC offered names directly. "Which of the top guys would come fight me in Brazil? None of them would come here to fight in Brazil," Oliveira said. He even predicted that once his comments went public, fighters would jump on social media to save face, tweeting that they would have accepted the fight, but in reality they wouldn't. Oliveira didn't stop there. He named Dan Hooker specifically, pointing out their long-standing back and forth. "Dan Hooker, this guy has been talking for a long time. The soap opera, you already know. It's been going on for years. He talked and talked and talked and it never happened. So really it's all talk. He talked a lot of nonsense, but when he's called, he doesn't go." That accusation hit a nerve, and Hooker wasted no time firing back. Speaking to Sky Sport, the Kiwi lightweight unleashed a mix of sarcasm and sharp criticism aimed directly at Oliveira. "False accusations," Hooker began. "You think that's really how that phone call went? They said, 'Do you want to fight semi-conscious Charles Oliveira?' And I said, 'Oh no, I'm scared of Charlie Olive's lifeless body floating around the cage.' No, I was never offered that fight. I require medical clearance. They did not medically clear me for October. They cleared me for November. So do I Hooker then turned up the heat even more, taking a jab at Oliveira's recent knockout loss to Ilia Topuria. "Now I don't know if he can give me Dr. Doolittle's number or whatever veterinary clinic he went to sign off on his brain, because if you put his brain in an MRI machine it would still be mashed potatoes," Hooker said with cutting humor. "I don't know who watched his last fight against Ilia Topuria and saw the back of his head bounce off the mat like a bouncy ball and then thought, you know what, I'd like to see him fight again in 6 weeks. It was a brutal counterattack, and Hooker's words made it clear that he's not about to let Oliveira paint him as someone who ducks fights. From his perspective, the issue was never fear. It was timing, health, and medical clearance. Whether this war of words leads to an actual fight remains to be seen, but the hostility is already at a main event level. Fans are now wondering if the UFC will capitalize on the tension, because if Oliveira and Hooker ever do step inside the octagon together, it won't just be about the rankings. It'll be about pride, payback, and proving who's telling the truth. Now let's move to another shocking headline. Jon Jones turned down $30 million for a fight with Tom Aspinall. Yes, you heard that right. According to Ariel Helwani, Jon Jones was offered a massive payday in the $30 million range to face Tom Aspinall, and he walked away from it. This revelation came during an episode of Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast, where Helwani was a guest. Logan asked Ariel about the Jones versus Aspinall situation, and what he revealed caught everyone off guard. Logan straight up asked, "Do you think Jones has been ducking him?" Ariel's response was carefully worded but clear. "Yes. I don't like that word because I think it's disrespectful towards him, but I think he didn't want to fight him, and I think it was a calculated decision on his part." Ariel then explained that Jones had given the UFC a number for what it would take to make the fight happen, a figure in the $30 million range. Most people, including Jones himself, likely thought the UFC wouldn't agree to it, but they did. Not only did they meet the number, but according to Helwani, Saudi Arabia was involved in making it happen. The big dogs were involved. Ariel said, "They came up with the number and he said yes, and then 2 or 3 days later, whatever it was, he said, nah, and on second thought, I'm out." That sudden reversal is what shocked so many people. Helwani pointed out that this wasn't the first time Jones had used this kind of tactic. Back in 2020, when talks were ongoing for a potential super fight with Francis Ngannou, Jones threw out a massive number that he knew the UFC wouldn't match. When they didn't, the fight fizzled out and Jones could say, "Hey, I tried." But this time was different. They actually said yes. Helwani questioned why Jones dragged the talks all the way until June if he had no intention of going through with it. "Why did you drag this out when you knew you weren't going to fight him?" Ariel asked rhetorically. Dana White also weighed in after Jones's decision to step away, saying that Jones had given him his word and then went back on it. This revelation leaves fans with more questions than answers. Was Jones genuinely not interested in facing Aspinall? Was it about timing, injuries, or protecting his legacy? Or was it simply a matter of not wanting to take the risk, even with $30 million on the table? One thing's for sure, turning down that kind of payday is rare in this sport, and with Aspinall continuing to rise as one of the most dangerous heavyweights in the world, the what-if of Jones versus Aspinall will continue to linger until either the fight happens or Jones walks away from the game for good. So there you have it, 3 massive stories shaking up the MMA world. Charles Oliveira firing back at Max Holloway's accusations and refusing to let the 2015 controversy define him. Dan Hooker clapping back at Oliveira's claims with some of the sharpest trash talk we've heard all year. And Jon Jones walking away from one of the biggest paydays in UFC history, leaving fans stunned and the heavyweight division full of unanswered questions. These aren't just headlines, they're moments that could reshape careers, fuel rivalries, and change the course of divisions. And as always in MMA, things can flip overnight. That's why the drama, the tension, and the uncertainty are what keep fans coming back for more. The next few months are going to be absolutely electric.